I just wanted to say a few more words about The Apprentice, the crazy show Donald Trump has, where he's the head CEO executive, and he has these contestants, and they're fighting for money for their charities. And he was upset on the last TV episode because Nene Leakes left and he lost control. Nene left and he wanted to be the one to say when people come, when people go, what they do, how they do it, whether they did a good job or bad job. And Nene took it in her own hands. She just said she was finished with the show and she left. And he had lost his wild lady. He lost the person people wanted to come to see. She was the aggressor. She was unpredictable in what she was going to say, how she was going to insult people, what she was going to do. She had a great viewership, which skyrocketed after putting these women, it's mostly the black women, who were arguing at each other and just acting very unprofessional. And they were the famous people there, and then he threw in Nene Leakes as the person to stir up things to make sure it didn't go on as just a regular boring show. Nene was the violent bomb. She would be in your face. She would be calling your name. She would talk about you as your career. She would talk about your physical appearance. You just couldn't be anything and not have Nene come down on you for something. And of course they put her with LaToya, the quiet type. She absorbs things. Things happen to her and she absorbs it, she takes it. She says she likes Nene, she loves Nene, Nene's a good person, Nene wants to help her. Of course Nene is talking about her like a dog. She's telling her she doesn't look right, she doesn't speak right, she doesn't sit right, she doesn't hang around with people like Nene wants her to. She doesn't do this, she doesn't do that. Nene just could not stop degrading LaToya in public, and LaToya would just suck it up and say, you know, Nene, you're a good person, I really want to be friends with you. And so everybody wanted to see that interaction. Then of course there was Star Jones. Star Jones had has a pretty fighty temper, and she was on The View and did her thing against Barbara Walters and caused some strain there, and then had her wedding, and there were problems with that, and then problems, she got a divorce afterwards and all kinds of things. And I think she tried to make some money off the wedding too. And so they wanted to see the interaction with Star Jones and Nene. How are these two women, Star the TV professional and Nene the wild lady, how are they going to act on TV? And everybody else, they had these, the white women. How was Nene going to act with white women? How was Nene going to act with white men? How was she going to act with Little John? No one knew, and all of this was going to be very, very interesting. And then, of course, they also had Meatloaf. I didn't know much about Meatloaf, but he did a lot of crying and other things and arguing and shouting. So that would be a great interaction. And then Gary Busey, he's known for the TV rehabilitation show, Drug Rehab. And of course on that he pretty much was his crazy self, the way he was on The Apprentice. And so that was also a thing, drawing aspect for this Apprentice TV show. And Little John, he looks unusual. They didn't know exactly what was going to happen with him. And then there were some normal people there who rounded out the group. Of course, Dionne Warwick. We love Dionne Warwick. We've known her since her old days. When she was a kid, she was singing. And she and Burt Bacharach wrote all of those great songs. What's It All About, Alfie? And on and on and on. And now she's respected senior in age 70s. And we wanted to see how she was doing, how she looks, maybe she would tell us a little bit about what her life is, or who knows what she would do. So people wanted to tune in also to see Dionne, but we didn't really expect Nene and Dionne to get into it, but you never know with Nene who in the world she's going to tear down next. So Nene was like the embarrassing comic relief of the show, and everyone else had to put up with her. And of course she was really an irritant to Star, who was trying to keep her composure and was always trying to sell herself for a business person and a producer, a very good worker on the show. And of course Nene would just come in and rag her down, try to drag her down to the street. So once Nene and her explosive behavior were gone, her bullying, her arguing, her in-your-face attitude, Trump decided, of course, that the other two blacks had to go. So right behind her went Star and LaToya, because they're more normal and they weren't going to really cause any big show that's going to be a real attraction for viewers on The Apprentice. So once Nene was out, Trump had lost control. He lost his comic group, and that's one reason he was very angry at Nene on the show and called her out and called her down and started saying mean things. And that was very unprofessional. I thought that was very low, especially you're supposed to be a CEO. You're supposed to be above the fray. You're supposed to observe it, but you're not supposed to get into it. And there was, Trump had even been drawn into the fray, the anger and the name-calling. So that was interesting to see how Trump even dragged himself down to that level and showed he had some problems too. He has a control problem. He had wanted to drag the group out longer and longer for ratings, and then he, of course, was trying to pile his announcement of his candidacy for president on top of it. So he, one day he came in and he asked the group, the contestants, he said, you know, some people don't think I make a good president. You guys would vote for me, wouldn't you? And they all said yes, because of course they're contestants on the TV show. And I guess they would thought it would be embarrassing to say, no, I wouldn't vote for you. But I know most of them wouldn't vote for Donald Trump as president. He really has nothing to offer that we want. But, you know, he was using these people, making them, sort of forcing them to say yes, they would support him for president. So he was using them with all the ratings. He expected a real good final day for his Apprentice show. He was going to have a lot of viewers, and then he was going to make his announcement whether or not he was going to run for president, yes or no. Probably no. I think he was just doing it to build the Trump brand, the Trump name, and all the stuff they call themselves. And so it was basically a business move, a publicity marketing move that he was doing, and I think in the end he probably would have said no, he wasn't going to run for president. But it was basically his ego that he was boosting on top of all of these people, and they were helping to bring him up to where he wanted to be. You know, he's big in this Apprentice show. He wants to be big in the political scene, I guess, also. He is a Republican. So I thought he was very dishonorable in the way he spoke to Nene, because he's in a position of power. He's well known. He has multiple casinos, and they've had quite a history with that. He's very wealthy. He has a TV show. He's known by a lot of famous people in the entertainment business. And there he is mouthing off and saying bad things about Nene, who's just a regular person. She had a small stint on a reality show, Housewives of Atlanta. She lost her husband. Her kids have problems. And now she's trying to eke out a career in the media. But she doesn't really have any skills. You know, she knows a couple of people, I think. She knows how to contact a couple of people in the media, but she doesn't really know anybody, I don't think. And she doesn't have any real connections. And so there she is struggling, and then there's this powerful person banging on her head, calling her names in public. And I think that was very, very bad. And that she did contribute a lot of ratings to his show, and he should have allowed her to go off, you know, in the Abbott and Costello style and just go off and continue wherever she's going to do back in Atlanta or wherever she ends up. And she really has nothing to fall back on. I don't think she has any education of note. At least she has never mentioned it. And she had mentioned on her show the history of pole dancing, I believe, and maybe stripping, but I'm not sure. Okay, so so Trump was using Nene and Latoya and Starr and all the other people to boost him up to presidency, but he really doesn't have anything to offer to us as a president. And most of the people who said they would have voted for him because they were contestants, of course, probably would not have really gone out and voted for him. So he was using them. He was putting them in a position where they couldn't speak their minds, and they had to lie. You know, they had to sell out and lie and say they would support Trump as president, but they really didn't want to. And I know a lot of people probably got flack for saying that they would vote for Trump against President Obama because they would vote for President Obama. Let's face it, they're not going to vote for Trump over President Obama. And even if President Obama decided not to run, there are probably lots of other people that they would choose before they would ever get to voting for Trump. So I want to say, you know, for Nene, I hope you get some mental health help and some anger help and work on that domestic violence. You know, Nene's charity was domestic violence. She was fighting against domestic violence, and here she is, one of the biggest perpetrators in every show she's in of domestic violence or violence in general, and bullying and name calling and harassing and hostile work environment, everything you can think of. And so who in the world would ever use her charity as a domestic violence retreat? Nobody, because you would go there and you would be chewed out by the person who owns the charity. So anyway, interesting, and we'll see what happens.